Nestled within the folds of time, Willow Grove exuded an air of nostalgic charm, its tree-lined, narrow streets adorned with quaint houses and neatly manicured lawns. This older, well-established neighborhood boasted a tapestry of average middle-class families, each home telling a unique story of bygone eras. The houses, with their Victorian and colonial influences, stood as architectural testaments to a more elegant past, weathered by years of shared memories and community bonds. However, perched atop a solitary hill, a spooky house disrupted the idyllic scene, casting a mysterious shadow over Willow Grove's familiar landscape. The contrast between the well-maintained houses and the decaying mansion created an intriguing comparison, leaving the townsfolk to wonder about the untold tales that clung to the old structure. Despite its imposing presence, the neighborhood maintained a collective, hushed curiosity about the enigmatic house, where stories of hidden treasures and lingering specters whispered through the generations, turning the hill into a focal point of both fear and fascination within the close-knit community. Perched at the end of one of the oldest roads within the small community, the house stood as a frozen relic, encapsulating the passage of time. Its time-worn facade bore the scars of countless seasons, with peeling paint revealing the weathered wood beneath. Ivy clung desperately to the decaying walls, as if trying to reclaim the structure from the inexorable grasp of neglect. Its windows, clouded, stared out like vacant eyes. The structure itself seemed to sag under the weight of its own history, its roofline crooked and uneven. Gnarled vines snaked along the edges, reaching toward the heavens as if in a silent plea for escape from the desolation that surrounded it. A fractured chimney stood as a solitary landmark against the encroaching wilderness, the remnants of a time when hearth fires once crackled within. The very air around the house carried a heavy stillness, and the overgrown garden, now an untamed thicket, whispered tales of long-lost laughter and footsteps that echoed in the silence of abandonment. The creaking gates, barely holding on to rusted hinges, marked the boundary between civilization and the isolation that enveloped the decaying structure. The overgrown path leading to the house seemed to repel visitors, shrouding the residents in an air of deliberate seclusion. Steeped in a rich tapestry of history, the old house had weathered the tides of time. Constructed in the early 19th century, it stood witness to eras of change. Originally owned by a prominent local family, the house had played host to extravagant gatherings and high society events. However, as decades passed, the family's fortunes dwindled, and the house fell into disrepair. Rumors whispered of a scandal that cast a shadow over the once grand residence. In this quiet neighborhood, two friends, James and Mikey, who had grown up together, always seemed to be drawn to the mysterious old house at the edge of town, due to the various rumors that had always floated around about it. James, a thoughtful and cautious teenager with a mop of unruly hair, had always been the voice of reason in their duo. His inquisitive blue eyes harbored a mix of fascination and wariness as he observed the weathered structure from a safe distance. On the other hand, Mikey, a lanky and perpetually curious companion with a shock of untamed curls, seemed to possess an uncanny ability to overlook the ominous aura surrounding the house. His enthusiasm often overshadowed the cautious nature of James, a trait that simultaneously concerned and amused James. Under the fading sun, James and Mikey found themselves navigating the outlying trails of their neighborhood on their trusty bikes, as they usually did in the summertime. The canopy overhead cast dappled shadows on the winding path. As the boys pedaled further into the labyrinth of trails, they unwittingly ventured deeper into the heart of the neighborhood's outskirts, where the old house perched atop a solitary hill. With the sun dipping below the horizon, the fading daylight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, casting a glow over the landscape. The two boys soon realized that the only route leading them back home in time before the darkness set in compelled them to ride past the enigmatic old house, and so they did, as they had no other choice. A mixture of anticipation and dread filled the air as they approached the looming structure, its silhouette framed against the darkening sky. The creaking of their bike chains and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures intensified the eerie atmosphere, turning the simple journey home into a suspenseful passage through the haunting outskirts of their neighborhood. As the two friends approached the old house, James hesitated at the edge of the property, a wariness etched across his face. Mikey was already off of his bike and stared intently at the old house from the outside of the wrought iron fence that lined the perimeter of the property. Mikey, undeterred and brimming with misplaced courage, nudged James playfully, urging him to join in his venture. "Come on, James, it's just an old house. Let's take a quick peek inside. What's the worst that could happen?" His wide grin displaying a confidence that James couldn't entirely share. Despite his reservations, a spark of curiosity ignited within James. The two friends, driven by countless overheard conversations about a hidden treasure rumored to be within the old house, decided to see if there was any truth behind the whispers that echoed through Willow Grove's haunted past. With the lure of adventure and a glimmer of potential reward, they ventured further into the enigmatic realm, fueled by a shared curiosity that overshadowed the caution that still lingered in James's mind. Despite the urgency of returning home before darkness blanketed the outlying trails, a magnetic allure emanated from the old house, tempting James and Mikey to steal a glimpse inside. The prospect of unlocking the secrets within its walls became too enticing to resist, especially since neither of the boys had ventured inside before. With James staying the night at Mikey's house, and the knowledge that Mikey's mom, known for her leniency, wouldn't mind the boys arriving a tad late, a sense of liberation filled the air. The impending adventure seemed too tantalizing to pass up, and the boys, guided by youthful curiosity, decided to seize the opportunity. The notion of exploring the unknown within the mysterious mansion took precedence, weaving an unspoken agreement between the two friends that this spontaneous detour was an adventure worth taking. As James and Mikey approached the old house, an undeniable tension hung in the air. The front porch, once a welcoming threshold, now seemed weathered and worn. The old door, showing the effects of time, stood strong and seemed impossible to open, resisting their attempts to budge it, even with a bit of force. Undeterred, the boys circled the aging mansion, their eyes fixated on a small, slightly ajar window on the side. Approaching the window, James and Mikey hesitated, curiosity etched across their faces. Peering through the dusty glass, they glimpsed into the interior of the old house, where the fading light cast shadows over forgotten relics. Amidst the dimness, a peculiar glint caught their eyes. An antique-looking chest, its lid slightly open, revealing a hint of glistening treasure. This alluring sight intensified the boys' eagerness, becoming the catalyst for their decision to climb through the window and unravel the mysteries held within the forgotten abode. As James and Mikey cautiously climbed through the window, the air within the old house felt stagnant, heavy with the weight of ages. To their surprise, the interior revealed a paradox, a certain resilience against the ravages of time. The wooden floor, though aged, retained a polished gleam beneath the layers of dust, and the walls, adorned with faded wallpaper, seemed undisturbed. Despite the unexpected preservation of the house, the air hung with the musty scent of neglect. Dust particles danced in the slivers of light that filtered through the long-forgotten curtains, giving the room an unearthly quality. Cobwebs draped corners and adorned forgotten artifacts like delicate lace, a testament to the passage of time unmarked by human presence. In the dimness, the boys found themselves surrounded by the relics of another era, an antique writing desk with yellowed pages scattered haphazardly, a vintage chandelier suspended from the ceiling, and a collection of ornate frames holding portraits of faces lost to history. The allure of the antique chest, which had captivated them from outside, now beckoned from a corner, its contents concealed in a shroud of mystery. The room, though still and untouched, pulsated with the promise of untold treasures waiting to be discovered. The boys, surprised by the unexpected state of the house, felt a surge of excitement and trepidation as they embarked on an exploration of a place seemingly frozen in time. Drawn by an invisible thread of curiosity, James and Mikey cautiously approached the antique chest that had beckoned to them from outside. The hinges creaked as they lifted the lid, revealing a trove of forgotten treasures, Amongst the dust-covered artifacts, their eyes widened at the sight of what seemed to be a remnant of a collection of vintage coins, tarnished yet gleaming in the dappled light. The discovery held a charm that transcended monetary worth. Each coin seemed to carry the weight of bygone adventures, an echo of the lives that once flourished within the walls of the old house. The boys, exchanging excited glances, recognized the small but meaningful value of their find. It was a small treasure that hinted at the potential for more hidden gems within the untouched corners of the house. Emboldened by the discovery, the duo decided to delve deeper into the mysterious mansion, their curiosity now fueled by the anticipation of uncovering further artifacts. The boys continued their exploration through the old house, but their search yielded no further discoveries, leaving them puzzled, yet undeterred. Despite the apparent emptiness, the glimmer of vintage coins in their possession fueled a persistent belief that more secrets lay hidden within the weathered walls. Their journey took them through every room. It was in one of the small bedrooms, bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun, that Mikey's keen observation skills came into play. As the dust particles danced in the sunbeams streaming through the window, he noticed an anomaly in the air, a subtle disturbance behind one of the bookshelves that seamlessly melded into the wall. Intrigued, Mikey gestured for James to join him, and together they carefully inspected the bookshelf. As the sunlight revealed the suspended particles, they discerned a faint outline, barely visible, hinting at a hidden passage or compartment. The realization sparked excitement in the boys, kindling a renewed sense of encouragement. With cautious anticipation, they began to investigate the seemingly ordinary bookshelf, knowing that what lay behind it might unveil more than they could have ever imagined. The air buzzed with the thrill of the unknown, and as they pushed against the bookshelf, it yielded, revealing a concealed space that promised to unravel another layer of the old house's enigma. As James and Mikey ventured through the concealed passageway, it led them to a narrow and steep staircase. The steps creaked beneath their weight as they ascended, the air growing colder with each step. The dim light of the hidden staircase gradually gave way to an eerie darkness that enveloped them. Upon reaching the top of the stairs, a small door was at the top, and when they opened it and stepped through, they found themselves standing in the attic, an expansive space steeped in shadows and dark outlines of various pieces of furniture. The air in the attic felt heavy with the weight of history, and dust particles danced in the slivers of light that managed to penetrate the aged windows. The attic, filled with forgotten artifacts and draped in cobwebs, held another, worldly ambience that set it apart from the rest of the house. Their eyes widened as they took in the sight of dusty trunks, worn-out furniture, and forgotten relics that adorned the attic's expanse. As they moved further into the attic, the boys felt a sense of anxiety and wonder, their footsteps echoing in the quiet space on the old wooden floorboards. Little did they know that within the attic's mysterious confines, the true heart of the old house's story awaited. A subtle shift in the air sent shivers down the boys' spines as they continued to explore the massive attic, and the atmosphere grew thick with an unspoken tension, and a palpable stillness settled over the space, as if the very essence of the attic held its breath. In the hushed silence, James and Mikey exchanged uneasy glances, sensing an intangible presence that transcended the realms of the living. As their eyes darted nervously around the attic, a chill descended, and the temperature seemed to plummet. The dust-laden air shimmered with an otherworldly energy, and the boys felt an inexplicable weight on their shoulders. Suddenly, a faint, mournful melody echoed through the attic. Then, emerging from the shadows, a spectral figure materialized. An apparition draped in what seemed to be tattered remnants of an elegant gown. The phantom of the past, with hollow eyes gleaming with an eternal sadness, stood between them and the small door that they had entered. James and Mikey, frozen in a mix of awe and terror, felt the weight of centuries-old sorrow emanating from the phantom. As the phantom of the past materialized before them, a wave of horror washed over James and Mikey. In their attempts to scream, a disconcerting realization gripped them. No sound escaped their lips. Mikey's vocal cords strained in futile attempts to vocalize his terror, while James, equally paralyzed by fear, found that his attempts to utter even a whisper were met with an eerie silence. The attic, once filled with the echoes of their footsteps, now absorbed their muted gasps. Panic flickered in their eyes as they exchanged wide-eyed glances, the shared realization of their voiceless state intensifying the unearthly encounter. It was as if the spectral presence had stolen the very essence of their voices, leaving them with a mute horror that deepened the already surreal atmosphere. The phantom, with its vacant eyes fixed on the boys, began to speak in a language that transcended the barriers of time, a broken cadence that echoed through the attic. The apparition's words, though fragmented and shrill, were strangely comprehended by James and Mikey. In spectral tones, the phantom revealed its plight, a tormented existence suspended between the realms of the living and the eternal darkness. It spoke of a pact forged in the shadows of centuries, a pact that bound its ethereal form to the old house and demanded the sustenance of human souls to stave off the encroaching void. The broken language painted a vivid picture of the phantom's perpetual struggle against the forever darkness that threatened to swallow it whole. It then disclosed the unsettling secret behind the house's unnaturally pristine facade. It spoke of the malevolent force that maintained the mansion's allure, a dark magic that maintained its exterior, adorned its halls with a spectral elegance, and concealed the haunting truths that lurked within. The house, a puppet in the hands of an unseen malevolence, masqueraded as an inviting haven to ensnare unsuspecting victims. As the phantom unraveled the house's twisted charm, it extended its gratitude to James and Mikey. Yet the thanks carried a sinister undertone, an acknowledgement of the unwitting role the boys played in the house's insidious game. Their souls, unwittingly offered as sacrifices, became fuel for the perpetual preservation of the house's spectral enchantment. The attic, now echoing with the phantom's haunting revelations, cast an eerie pallor over the room. James and Mikey, their faces drained of color, felt the oppressive weight of the phantom's gratitude. It was a chilling acknowledgement that their curiosity had propelled them into a realm of perpetual torment. Reacting on pure instinct and the primal urge to escape the spectral grip, the boys, fueled by fear, made a desperate sprint for the attic door. Their footsteps echoed through the haunted space, the phantom's mournful voice trailing behind them like a sinister lullaby. As they reached for the door, the air crackled with a malevolent energy, and the house seemed to groan in response to their attempted escape. With adrenaline-fueled determination, James and Mikey flung the door open, the chilling creak drowning in the phantom's eerie laughter. The descent down the narrow staircase became a race against time as the phantom's spectral echoes reverberated through the haunted manor. The boys, their hearts pounding, emerged onto the ground floor and quickly scrambled to get to the small window upon which they entered. They quickly shuffled out of the small opening and momentarily stopped to gather their breath. However, their momentary relief turned to horror as they surveyed their surroundings. The realization dawned on them. Once again, they stood inside the very house they had sought to escape. To their dismay, the view beyond the window offered a cruel revelation. The narrow trails of the outlying neighborhood, the fading twilight, and the distant silhouette of the old house perched at the end of the road. All remained frozen in a loop that defied the laws of time. The boys, their breaths caught in their throats, exchanged wordless glances that mirrored the silent terror that enveloped them. It was a realization that transcended the boundaries of reason. They were trapped within the confines of the old house in an eternal loop, condemned to relive the same haunting cycle over and over again. As they gazed out the window once more, the haunting truth settled in. Their voices had been stolen not only by the phantom, but by the very fabric of the house itself. In a cruel twist of fate, they were condemned to traverse the same corridors, climb the same staircase, and peer out of the same window. Their existence forever lost to time, their voices forever silenced in the eternal loop of the old house's spectral embrace. The attic, with its secrets and shadows, became their timeless prison, a silent witness to the boys' plight as they became ghosts trapped within the echoes of their own existence.